Well, we have an exciting weekend planned between performances, Tamara's events. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like filled with poetry.
Yeah. So much poetry. I'm excited for Sundog. They're like really doing it up.
Yeah. I'm especially excited for 2018. Like, let's get some poetry and justice for all.
Speaking of justice, like the leader of queer activism in Vermont, I'm gonna say it. It's DJ Lou, and we have them here today.
Whoa! Oh my God!
The leader.
You did not
you
just say
that. Leader.
Actually, wait. I don't know. I was
Do it.
That's a quiet coyote. I'm tired.
Too much outright.
Too much outright right there. No, I was gonna do live long and prosper. That's what my brain just did not have a computing moment there. So like,
I thought you were doing like Wu-Tang or something.
No, Wu-Tang's like this. I'm too white to do the Wu-Tang thing. Like my fingers do not. It's like you do the W thing, right?
Oh, I really didn't know.
Yeah, I should not be throwing that onto the screen at all. No, yes, but thank you. That's quite the.
Well, no, thank you for just like sticking it out and helping, through all the organizations you're a part of, queer youth and just queer individuals.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This feels not too cash. You guys
we're
were like,
we're like,
I'm gonna move.
Oh.
I know.
Should we be lounging in
or
our
it was
chairs?
like maybe a little too therapy-ish. I don't know. Like yeah.
Come to our couch.
Yeah, right. Or just put my. That's rude.
Yeah.
I'm not being. This is your
Yeah,
living
come
room.
on.
God forbid.
Right, with your pretty plants.
Our very clean shade
Very
tree.
clean shade
This
tree.
is the shade tree.
Because you can't have tea without shade.
Wow. Are you writer? How many writers do you have for the show? I'm just.
I can't keep track. I think
Yeah.
last just you? Well, I'm a printer. I edit. I edited. I don't know if you noticed. I did
writer,
edit.
You're the editor. It's a
We
great,
make it happen. It's a great partnership here.
small community.
It's great.
Yeah, yeah.
It takes a team. It takes a village.
It sure does.
It does. So, speaking of villages, like you have your hands all over our village here. Like music, drag, DJing, activism, a jack of all trades, some may say. And what are you doing like right now? Fill us in. What is in the life of DJ Lou?
So kind of my day job is interim executive director for Outright Vermont, which is kind of a full circle for me in my career thus far in being in Burlington, because I was the director for Outright about 10 years ago. I was actually a co-director first and then a sole director back in my early 20s when I was younger and had less gray hair and all the things, more energy. But I'm back there, and it's just that organization has always been near and dear to my heart. Even when I wasn't on staff, I've been pulling fire trucks. I've been doing all sorts of stuff with them in any way that I can. But essentially, what I'm doing is helping them kind of lead through this transition time for their leadership, figure out what is next and what is right for them. Outright Vermont, of course, works with queer youth around the state, advocacy and education work in schools, and a rip-worn queer youth space here in Burlington. And then besides that, I have been the longtime producer for Pop-Up Queer Dance Party and co-founder of that. I DJ on the side as DJ Lou. I've had a weekly radio show on WRUV for like 15 years now. So Sunday nights, 8 to 10, folks can tune in. What I play on the radio is pretty different from what I spin out like for Club-wise, because it's kind of like different genres really. And then also I'm co-producing SAS, well, essentially with both of you, really, let's be honest here, which is kind of a spin-off of Pop-Up. It's like a monthly dance party and social at Higher Ground. And so that's the second weekend of every month. And I think for the next few, it'll be the second Saturday of every month. So those are just a few things,
Just a couple.
Just a couple things.
That was only like 6 or 7
it was,
things.
Indeed.
And that's the show, right? I mean,
That
that's
is
all. We only have time for that one question.
And
No.
I don't even think you mentioned
WBTV-LP.
LP.
So that has been a project for, I want to say like 6 years now, where we're building a new community radio station, actually right here at the VCAM studios, where you are now.
Lovely.
Just on the other side of that wall, there's an actual full functioning radio studio. And it's for low power community radio. Essentially what low power means is exactly kind of what it sounds like. For 100 watts, you can actually have a broadcasting radio station that gets 100 watts in Burlington would probably get to essentially Winooski, maybe Shelburne. It's like, it's depending on where the geography is really, because radio waves, if it hits a mountain, it obviously doesn't go to the other side, right? In Burlington, with 100 watts, that's really low with the antenna here, so it wouldn't really get above the hill in Burlington, which there's a hill in Burlington. Most people are like, don't realize that, but all it takes is
The Hill
walking up.
District.
Yeah, the Hill District, exactly. And so anyway, in short, 99.3 WBTV will be actually broadcasting on regular radio by the end of the summer. We're raising a tower. It's kind of like the exciting final push here, because the last 6 years has been all of the boring stuff of building a station. So like filing paperwork with the government and figuring out what equipment you need and how to fundraise for it and getting some basic programmers. So
do you have to deal with like the FCC and all of that sort of stuff?
Oh yeah, I literally know how to build a radio station at
That's
this point.
exciting. That's
But how often does one use those skills?
I don't know,
though?
but
It's
you
not-
can put it on your resume.
I can put it on my resume.
I mean, I want to put that on my
That's
resume.
true.
We built a TV show,
Yeah.
but not nearly as
It's cool. It's cool.
I mean, we do owe this TV show to
To you. Absolutely.
I mean, giving you a lot of praise today, but
I know, my
you
God, it's
deserve
like
it.
even my hype team.
That's great.
Quick discussion around like, we want to be a part of the radio, and you said no.
No.
Your faces are made for TV,
I did.
which people do not
I
often
said
say
you
to
should
us.
do TV. Indeed.
They usually say your faces are made
I
for
did.
radio, but hey, we made it to TV instead.
We did.
I saw this thing on Facebook. Someone had the social commentary to say that drag is to trans women as blackface is to people of color.
How do you feel?
Discuss.
Good Lord, that's a big question. I think context is everything, right? So there's social context for the history of drag, and actually drag has included people of color communities in a whole range of things, right? So and drag is also this like performance. So blackface is straight up racist.
Right.
So I'm not really sure if I need to say more than that. It actually is, and it's like it's white people playing out stereotypes of black people with the intent to belittle and make fun of people and be completely inappropriate and awful. Drag is about assuming a different persona of yourself by using gender as the playful performance. And I think that responsible drag also has elements of social responsibility and commitment to community and a political bent to it for some drag. So I think it's two completely different topics and cultural phenomenons, and you can't oversimplify it into comparing them as the same thing. It's just you can't.
I am going to take this moment and coin, I hope I'm coining us, but the term please drag responsibly. And I want it on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Please drag responsibly,
There you
right?
go.
It makes sense.
There you go.
And I see you have a t-shirt? What
I
is
do
this?
have a t-shirt.
What is this?
So, maybe in a similar vein, and I do not want to get into this today, but so this t-shirt says queer as fuck. I don't know if
Yeah.
you can see that.
Zoom.
Up.
Up. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
So queer as fuck, this is another example of like queer as an identity that has been formulating over the last 30 to 40 years in a fierce way to take back the word queer, which was a slur for many folks of an older generation than ourselves. I totally get that. There are many other words that are similar to that I won't even give justice to like use these as examples, but queer is this more inclusive term that has been re-empowered by people, including myself, around gender and sexuality. I identify as a queer person, as a genderqueer person, and as a word and a term, it has become politicized, and there's an academic stint to queer. There's queer theory and queer studies in academia where it actually explores gender and sexuality in a different level. And so, when people use the word queer and liken it to other slurs of like, oh, you don't use the word queer because it's just like using the F word, or it's just like using, other really hateful, intentional language. Again, I would argue that the use of the word queer, if it's someone's identity, it's not the same thing. Again, these are really super complex concepts that you cannot oversimplify to just be like, oh, it's the same thing. And so I had this t-shirt made by a friend of mine, an artist friend of mine. Again, I'll show it one more time.
Yes.
Jen Berger made this for me, so thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
Because there was a big battle in the queer community locally about the use of the word queer in Pop-Up Queer Dance Party, and saying that it was a slur and that we should not use the word queer. And I said, nope. Like in the context by which we're having this conversation, it's an identity that I hold. It's a name for the organization that does these dance parties, and for a huge growing part of the population of the community that is who identify as queer. So like this is therefore a queer dance party. And so using, what words you use, I think carry great responsibility and power and weight in this community for the space that you're trying to create. And we are creating queer space at Pop-Up Queer Dance Party. So hence the t-shirt and being queer as fuck. So.
Yeah.
I need a Jen Berger, I need a t-shirt. I didn't know you, Jen, but I want your shirts.
Mass produced.
Yes.
So, talking about queer intentional space, what does that look like? Like, what are the vibes of a queer intentional space?
Queer intentional space, I think, is just like you being, thinking about safety, thinking about the content of the event, how people feel while they're there, what does the space look like, just being creative with it. And therefore it can really be about anything. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, keeping it simple, right?
Yeah, boil it down. Makes it a lot easier. Take it in. And like identities and claiming that space is like a form of activism in itself. Like revolutionary to just like fight back against this system with a CIS system. So what does activism look like for you specifically?
Activism look like for me? You guys are getting me clamped. Activism is showing up, is being real, is being humble enough to know that you don't know everything. I think ally activism is some of the most important work that can be done right now, but also being fiercely defensive of like what is true and important to you. And it ranges in the topics, right? So like we're talking about like simply just survival right now in this age of Trump, but in the queer community that has looked like a lot of different things. As white people in a world that has a lot of racism going on still, that looks like a different element of activism, so how white people show up to fight racism. So I think that activism for me is about being able to realize that there's a role to play in all of these things, and you need to be able to show up in a way that's authentic and real to you, but also sustainable. And so, you're no good to anybody if you're just like gonna burn out and, just be like on this like crusade of like justice and then be like, I'm tired and exhausted and out of money. And so, for me, it's about being able to see, to be true to kind of what it impacts me personally, but then also be like, again, a good ally and showing up for other people when is appropriate and when is, within context, right? So like Black Lives Matters, for example, is a great movement that has been really inclusive of white allies, making sure that there's like places that are appropriate for those folks to show up. They're not the leaders of Black Lives Matter, though. Like, white people should not be the leaders of Black Lives Matter. And similarly, in all these other movements, it's like letting people kind of knowing when you should lead and when you should follow, I guess is what I would say is kind of the bedrock, I think, of good activism.
Yeah. So in this like journey of activism and the way that it plays out, like we've seen so many movements, whether it's the feminist, whether it's the Black Lives Matter, whether it's the own like queer movement that we have in Vermont, whether that's like Take Back Vermont way back in the day, well, actually not that far back. Have you seen a change in activism in the way that it plays out in communities?
Yeah, activism, I mean, there's no right or wrong way to be an activist, really. I think, again, the hallmark of activism is like getting educated and learning how to educate others. That's what activism is about, right? You're trying to move people to change behaviors and systems of thinking and rules and regulations and sometimes laws, and that all stems with the root of education. If people don't know what they don't know, So if you're trying to kind of make that change, you need to change your strategy and how you're teaching people. So that's where I think it's changed over the years, is that, some people wanted to like shame people into doing the right thing. That's one strategy, like the ACT UP is what I'm thinking about, right? So the die-ins that were happening during AIDS, like it got that bad. It straight up got that bad, and so like that was like what they needed to do is shame the government into saying, you're ignoring all these hundreds of thousands of people, not hundreds of thousands at that time, but like over the years, it has been hundreds of thousands of people now who've died from HIV/AIDS. And ACT UP was really trying to kind of like blow the alarm and say, the government's literally doing nothing for this like this plague that's happening. Yeah. And different other strategies, for example, like Outright at this point is working closely in partnership with schools about how to create safe schools for queer students, basically. And that's in a partnership kind of way. So it's not in a like, you guys are doing a bad job. It's more in a way of like, we're going to work with you so that you can educate your teachers about proper pronouns and, the experience of trans youth and like what, gay lives might feel like or be like for young people who live in the middle of the Northeast Kingdom. And so I think it's about, again, using education as the lens, but then like different ways to kind of educate people. Sometimes you got to wake them up. Sometimes you got to kind of lead them gently. And so I think that's part of how it's changed over the years.
Yeah, especially in the era of, we kind of get into this topic of slacktivism on Facebook. So is that a thing? Like, you're educating, you're providing information to the masses.
It's not.
But-
Because
okay.
I guarantee people are not actually reading all those articles.
There's
Right.
more than just hitting share.
They read
Yeah.
the titles, though. That's a lot of work. There's a lot of
Yeah,
content on Facebook.
Social media is just a way to kind of shout at each other, really. I think it's not, if you're going to have a real like conversation that's going to move you, you need to have it in person. I think that's the only way to do it. So
So maybe it
Yeah.
is a slacktivist route.
it is.
Yeah.
I would say it is a selective route. Yeah.
Let's play a game. Do you want to play a game?
I would love to play a game.